Listen to me good. If you want to find out what's going on, if you really want to do your job, and by the way, this is not directed at you, but the mainstream media, these sock puppets who sit around and are complicit in basically reformulating the truth, the first thing I would do is I would send news crews to Lahaina and I would ask them to explain and ask from the citizens, what are you seeing? What are people saying? What is your instinct? What are your suspicions? What are you thinking? Do you hear what people are saying on social media? Do you hear about what they are saying about how certain properties seem to be not targeted, but some might say that. Either way, do you hear what they're saying? Do you hear what the folks there are saying? And the reason why people don't want to listen to them is because you don't want to get into that conspiracy theory. See, let me explain to you how it works. The conspiracist, and by the way, I please like and subscribe. Please. I'm going through a lot of trouble to try to provide the truth, and I'm catching a lot of flack from people who don't want the truth. And I don't know the truth. I want to get it, which is what I'm saying. But let me give you the lowdown. In the conspiracist realm, there has always been this idea that whenever there are weird fires that whoever these people are who can't figure them out, but whenever there's a fire or something that doesn't seem to be kosher or usual or expected or explicable or usual or historically consistent, whatever the reason, whenever something happens, whenever they think, wow, look at these fires, there will be people that will say certain properties seem to be targeted. Now, targeted then breaks down, as I have said a gazillion times. Some people will hear this I've never been to Hawaii. Fine, how are you? I've never been there. I don't know the lay of the lamb, as one of my old radio folks used to say. I don't know the property. I don't know anything about this. I know there are some people have there. It's a very nice place. There's rich properties. Yeah. I understand this. So I don't know anything about this. But there are some people who are as equally as ignorant as I as to the geographical setup of who's who. But as soon as they hear fire, and as soon as they hear anything that seems odd, or they will immediately say, aha, there is some kind of deliberate targeting. There is a targeted surgical arson, surgical removal to either force people to move, to force people to relocate, to reconfigure the demographics and the like. This is what people will say. This is then put into the into the label of conspiracy theory lunatic. Okay, so you put that over there. Now, why that is, I have no idea. And it goes back to Marjorie Taylor Greene and that sort of thing. Okay, fine. Now, again, nobody's been there. Nobody knows what they're saying, but immediately somebody says this is what's happening, and the other people will dispute it because there are some people, as you know, who love anything that you would call, and I hate this word, but a conspiracy theory or something inexplicable or something mysterious. And there are other people who hate anything that is at all different than the usual. Okay, put them over here. Then there's the following. Listen to what people who live there, what many of them are saying, and you will never, ever hear this on mainstream media, cable, anything. Listen to what they say. Listen to what they say. Listen to, and you might say to yourself, well, how much of a sample is there? What if it's one person? The point is, I'm telling you this. You know where to find these folks. Some of them are good, some of them are not. but some will provide an absolutely fascinating look as to how many of the locals themselves are saying this doesn't make any sense. We haven't seen, why weren't these alarms on? Why is there is it's so funny, isn't it? And I'm no expert in this, but cell usage and cell phones, and you can be in a plane today in some cases, and 22 years ago, but you can be in places and have absolutely incredible cellular service. Yet for some reason, and I don't know this, people are saying, well, there's no cell service there. There's cell service in war, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. Again, I always will tell you, I'm not an expert. I will give you a or not a suspicion, but something that maybe perhaps might invoke or inspire suspicion, but I don't know. But I love the questions. And what I'm saying is, thank God for real social media, because listen to the people who were there, especially with somebody who comes along who's young, maybe in their 20s, who says, hey, I saw something that's weird. I've seen this. I have been through this before. I was here, as an example, 20, soon to be 22 years ago in New York on 9/11. What I saw, what I experienced and smelled and felt and saw had, in some cases, nothing to do with what the mainstream media was reporting. And some of them were not necessarily nefarious omissions, but there was a dissimilarity that you couldn't meet, you couldn't blast. The mainstream media are so afraid. So afraid. This is a cable media, the statist, sock puppet, shadow government, ruling class media, deep state, whatever you want to call it. They are so afraid of saying the wrong thing, of maybe making one of their leaders or their overlords unhappy, that they report nothing. Don't you? I mean, isn't this when you hear people from an area that say, we haven't had anything like this ever, or we've had floods, but they don't go this way. I'm just giving you as an example of something that a local might say. Don't you think that's relevant? Don't you think that's important? Don't you? I do. I do. Look at the people who live there. Look at the properties. Just listen to what they're saying. I'm not making any confirmed or definitive or absolute, as some people do, rulings or beliefs as to the reasons for fire, and that this is some kind of a controlled, targeted. I'm not saying that. But nobody wants to listen. People are more interested in how the movie Barbie is made, or all of a sudden they're interested in Oppenheimer for like a week, and then they're not interested anymore. Listen to what people tell you. Listen to what natives say, residents, third, fourth, fifth generation, who've said, we've never seen this before. This is odd. Listen to what professionals say. Listen to what it's interesting how the mainstream media are given signals. Okay, you can go after the Gilgo Beach alleged serial killer and how they nabbed him through a pizza, but don't say anything or in any way focus on what happened at the White House regarding cocaine that was found and why that DNA and those fingerprints and those cameras don't work. Don't talk about that, but talk about this. And these people right now are so, understand something. This is another disaster area. Mainstream media news sources. Look at what's happening in terms of entertainment. Look at SAG-AFTRA. Just what's going to happen to plain old, what used to be called Hollywood. Look at what's happening. Look at how newsrooms are being shuttered. Look at what Look at how they're doubling down. Look how horrible mainstream media, cable news is. It's bereft of any kind of substance. But the thing that I would have is I would have nothing but locals say, "What did you notice? Show me what burned and what didn't burn." Don't you think that's interesting? Don't you think that's I have a friend of mine. This is interesting. I have a friend of mine. He's a famous arson investigator. And he told me one time, he said, find out what burns in the house. When you find out that there's been a fire and everything supposedly is gone, but yet somebody got rid of wedding pictures, or is it, wait a minute, why would you have? How come those weren't burned? Why did you, behavior that is not consistent with somebody who was the victim of some flash fire? Always look and witness, talk to people, listen to people. This is what arson investigators do. Anything normal, anything you notice different? Yeah. How's the weather been? Is it raining? How do fire points, ignition points, how do they begin? Where does this come from? Where does it come from? Just ask the question. Please don't jump. I don't want to hear about pillar lights and death rays. If that's true, please find some evidence of this. Just ask the questions. Ask people, what have you noticed differently? Who burned and who didn't? Who were the tragedies? Who's coming forth? Any rich people? Was there any development going on here? Just tell me. Tell me what you know. You're not going to find that out, because that would be maybe doing investigative reporting. And you and I know that in these miserable, horrible, these platforms that are about to shutter, that are about to close down because mainstream media news is dead. They're stretching. They're doing everything. Have you seen these new forms of folks that are recycling and rehashing everybody who used to be on this show? The spackled and Botoxed, zipper. Their face almost looks like zippered. They're just, but these airheads. These spackled and Botoxed, plasticine nothings, have you noticed? And they're just being shuffled from one to the other. And the only guy who happened to be any good, Tucker Carlson, they got rid of him. That's another story. We'll talk about that later. So here's the question. Go online. I saw some stuff on Instagram that was fantastic. I saw stuff, and that's Zuckerberg and those guys. And maybe this got through. But these are just people just pointing out things they saw, things they knew, things they questioned, things and observations that are fascinating. Think, ask questions. And like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you're notified of new streams and the like. And comment, dear friend, comment as you see fit.